Beirut blast. We have lost our homes. We have lost our families. We have lost a lot. But we do not want to lose our love for you and our faith in you. We want to persevere in your love forever and continue to live with you on the example of your mother, the Virgin Mary, and all the saints. We pray with Saint Francis, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be counseled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Let us pray together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Amen.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Thank you very much, Father Abud. We are having some problem with the translation, but we are fixing it. And when they will be available, you will have both translation into Spanish and into French. The introductory remark will be by Monsieur Gabriel Atti, who is the president of Caritas Mona, Middle East and North Africa, and also a member of CI Executive Board. Mr. Atti will speak in French, and I will provide for the translation. Monsieur Atti? Vous pourrez parler, je vais traduire, vous arrêtez et je vais traduire, ok?
D'accord. Tout d'abord, je voudrais remercier le Père Michel pour cette belle prière.
I would like to thank you, the Father Michel, for the wonderful prayer.
Alors, bonjour les amis, je vous parle de Nouakchott en Mauritanie. En ma qualité... Pardon.
Dear friends, I'm speaking to you from Nouakchott in Mauritania, where I live.
En ma qualité de membre du comité exécutif de Caritas Internationalis et de président de la région MONA, Moyen-Orient, Nord-Afrique, Corne de l'Afrique, pour la Confédération, je voudrais remercier M. Aloysius John, secrétaire général de la Caritas Internationalis, et ses collaborateurs.
As a member of the CI Executive Board and President of the MONA region for the Confederation, I would like to thank Mr. Aloysius John, Secretary General of CI, and his collaborators.
Martha naturellement, et M. Karam Abiazbek, aussi notre coordinateur régional, d'avoir organisé cette rencontre autour des événements malheureux qui se passent aujourd'hui au Liban et des moyens à mettre en œuvre pour y remédier.
Mhm. Also, Mr. Karam Abiyechek, our regional coordinator, for having organized this meeting around the important events that are taking place today in Lebanon and the means to remedy them.
Je salue aussi fraternellement le président de Caritas Liban, le révérend père Michel Aboud, et ses collaborateurs qui me sont familiers.
I also fraternally greet the president of Caritas Lebanon, Reverend Father Michel Aboud, and his collaborators who are familiar to me.
Notamment Rita et Peter, ainsi donc que toutes celles et tous ceux qui ont bien voulu participer à cette réunion.
Rita and Peter, and as well as all those who have kindly participated in this meeting.
Je saisis cette occasion pour féliciter notre ami Aloysius John pour tous les efforts qu'il déploie pour venir en aide à nos Caritas.
I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate our friends Aloysius John for all these efforts to help our Caritas organizations.
Nos Caritas qui mènent le combat contre la pauvreté et les souffrances sur tous les fronts.
Our Caritas that are fighting against poverty and suffering on all fronts.
Notamment les régions qui connaissent les conflits violents, les migrations, les catastrophes accidentelles et naturelles, et aussi les pays qui vivent des crises insupportables.
Especially in the regions that are experiencing violent conflicts, migration, natural disasters, and also in countries that are experiencing unbearable crises.
Donc des crises insupportables comme la Syrie, le Soudan du Sud, Haïti, le Congo, la République centrafricaine et maintenant le Liban.
Unbearable crises in the countries such as Syria, South Sudan, Haiti, and now Lebanon.
Le Liban, où notre ami Aloysius s'est rendu sur place pendant la pandémie.
Lebanon, where our friend Aloysius went during the pandemic.
Pour s'enquérir de la situation et assurer Caritas Liban de notre soutien.
To inquire about the situation and to ensure Caritas Lebanon for our support.
Depuis 2 ans, par sa motivation et son dynamisme, la Confédération s'est renforcée et s'est réformée.
In the last 2 years, through its motivation and dynamism, the Confederation has reformed and
Elle se projette désormais au sein de nos régions et des organisations membres.
And is now projecting itself within our region and member organizations.
Par les normes de gestion et de sauvegarde, la communication et le plaidoyer, ainsi qu'une meilleure compréhension de la coordination.
Through management and safeguarding norms, communication and advocacy, as well as a better understanding on much needed coordination.
La coordination tant nécessaire pour rendre plus opérationnelle notre confédération qui aspire à des relations plus fraternelles sur la base de nos valeurs religieuses.
A much needed coordination to make our confederation more operational, which aspires to more fraternal relations based on our religious values.
Je voudrais vous entretenir également de notre sujet d'aujourd'hui, en sachant qu'après mon intervention, nos amis de Caritas Liban et le coordinateur régional le feront.
I would also like to talk about our topic today, knowing that after a month, our friends from Caritas Lebanon and the regional coordinator
le feront mieux que moi, avec leurs émotions, avec leur expérience et leur professionnalisme.
will do it better than me with their emotions, experience, and professionalism.
Sans évoquer la situation politique de ce pays, le Liban.
Without mentioning the political situation of this country, Lebanon.
Je dirais que l'économie libanaise s'est effondrée et que l'inflation fait rage.
I would say that the Lebanese economy has collapsed and the inflation is raging.
La situation au Liban devient de plus en plus compliquée car il est difficile de subvenir à ses besoins les plus élémentaires.
The situation in Lebanon is becoming more and more complicated as it's difficult to provide for one's basic needs.
Une crise multiforme qui n'en finit pas et s'est installée dans la durée.
A multi-phase crisis that never ends has taken hold.
Les ménages dépensent désormais 5 fois le salaire minimum pour les seuls besoins alimentaires.
Households are now spending 5 times the minimum wage on food alone.
La monnaie locale, la livre libanaise, a perdu plus de 90% de sa valeur par rapport au dollar.
The local currency, the Lebanese pound, has lost more than 90% of its value against the dollar,
faisant fondre le pouvoir d'achat en propulsant les prix à des pics inédits.
melting purchasing power and pushing prices to unprecedented levels.
Hormis les dépenses d'eau, d'électricité et de gaz domestique également en très forte hausse,
Apart from water, electricity, and domestic gas, which have also risen sharply,
une famille de 5 personnes dépense aujourd'hui plus de 3,5 millions de livres par mois pour la nourriture.
a family of 5 people now spends more than 3.5 million pounds a month only on food,
indique l'Observatoire de la crise de l'Université américaine de Beyrouth.
as said by the American University of Beirut's Crisis Observatory.
Le salaire minimum s'élevait à 675 000 livres libanaises.
The minimum wage used to be at 675,000 Lebanese pounds.
Cela représentait auparavant $450 par mois, mais à peine $30 aujourd'hui.
Which used to be $450 per month, but now is barely $30.
Plus de la moitié de la population vit aujourd'hui sous le seuil de la pauvreté.
More than half of the population is now living below the poverty line.
Selon le même observatoire de l'Université américaine de Beyrouth,
according to the same observatory of American University in Beirut,
le coût des aliments a bondi de 700% au cours de ces 2 dernières années.
The cost of food has jumped by 700% in the last 2 years.
Et pourrait augmenter encore davantage alors que les prix ne cessent de battre des records.
And could increase even more as prices continue to break records.
Voilà donc la population libanaise meurtrie par la crise.
So here is the Lebanese population birthed by this crisis,
mais aussi par les interférences des stratégies et des agendas des puissances régionales et internationales.
but also by the interference of strategies and agendas of regional and international powers.
Cette population que nous devons absolument aider à amoindrir ses souffrances.
This population that we must absolutely help to reduce its suffering
et à retrouver sa fierté, sa dignité, sa générosité exemplaire.
and to recover its pride, its dignity, its exemplary generosity.
C'est pour cela que nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui pour soutenir les efforts de Caritas Liban, qui a toujours été un modèle au sein de notre confédération.
This is why we are gathered here today to support the efforts of Caritas Lebanon, which has always been a model within our confederation.
Je vous remercie pour votre attention.
Thank you for your attention. Monsieur Ratti, Merci beaucoup. We thank you for your really important points. And I'm now giving the floor to Caritas Internationalis Secretary General Aloysius John, who will not only bring the voice of the Confederation, of course, but also talking about his personal experience in Lebanon, because he visited the country 1 month after the blast, as Mr. Ratti remember in his speech. Aloysius.
Thank you, Marta. President Gabriel Ratti, President of the region, dear colleagues, Abuna Michel, and dear colleagues of the region. Last July, Beirut was rocked by a major violent explosion that shattered thousands of people's lives, leaving more than 300 dead and thousands homeless. This explosion was the start of a series of complicated problems for Lebanon, leading to a political turmoil in a context of the pandemic. Corruption, lack of transparency, and lack of political commitment to serve the people led the nation to a dead end with no care for the affected survivors. Even today, the situation is still bleak, even though the recent developments announce some rays of hope on the new candidate to form a government. It is in this context, when the blast happened, the Confederation, Caritas Internationalis, called on our donators to express care and concern for those affected by the Beirut blast, to help them and support them. I was in September last year, as the president of the region said, in Beirut, and I would just share 2 experiences. I met Elias, a paralyzed person who had a smile in his face in spite of the gloomy situation created by the bomb blast. He said, Caritas was a saving hand at the time of the blast, and today Caritas is a ray of hope. He added, I have nothing but only my joy and smile to share, to thank all those who helped me save my life. This was something tremendous which touched me, and that's the reason why I'm sharing it. Caritas Lebanon, with the help received from the Confederation, from Caritas Internationalis and the network, had lit the faces of thousands with joy and smile, who were otherwise abandoned in despair with no help and support. Your gesture of solidarity as donators has contributed to build fraternity. And Maria, a woman who lost her son, her only son, said at this moment of despair, I know people whom I don't know love me and care for me. In this expression of love, she said, I see God's hand and he never abandoned me. This again was a very second witness, which was very touching. These 2 witnesses are a sign of hope that each donator gave to the poorest, and each gesture was transformed into a smile, a hope, and a feeling of belongingness to the human family, even when everything was shattered into bits and pieces. I want to thank each and every one of the donators who readily and unconditionally gave, like the Good Samaritan, and restored the dignity to the survivors of the blast. Caritas is convinced that we cannot solve all the problems, but each gesture of solidarity is a gesture of hope and a means to motivate others to support those in need. And here I would like to express in a very special way thanks to the youth in Lebanon who gave a helping hand and who were in the front line helping the people who were affected by the blast. On behalf of the President of Caritas Internationalis, Cardinal Tagle, and on my personal behalf, I wish to thank you for your gestures of solidarity and your support for the mission of Caritas. I know that I can count on your generosity to serve the poorest. Thank you, and may God bless you and your families. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as a director for fundraising in Caritas Internationalis, I also would like to thank the many benefactors who really gave their everything with generosity. We really had a wonderful response as soon as the blast occurred. We have more than 1,000 donors already showed their solidarity, and still here today we continue to receive support and prayers for them, and really this is an occasion for us to show them our gratitude. And now we go to Beirut. We talk to you about the wonderful and precious work of Caritas Lebanon, and now we will find out more about this work during this very difficult month. And I'll give now the floor to Father Michel Aboud, the President of Caritas Lebanon. Father Michel.
Good afternoon for all. Good afternoon for you, Dr. Aloysius, John Aloysius, Gabriel Hetti. And Dr. Aloysius, we appreciate a lot your visit in Lebanon during the Beirut blast. Thank you. I would like to thank you for this event dedicated to Lebanon, especially for this time of gratitude to God, who allows many people on the way of this life to project love into the heart of this world. 1 year after Beirut blast had a huge impact on Lebanon, which required Caritas to intervene. Therefore, the teams that were working on the field were told that in times of war, there is no place for learning. So we must apply what we have learned during peaceful times. And this is how we acted. It was a terrible situation on the country level. So the board of Caritas had to meet urgently and take a prompt decision to spend $1 million for this situation in case we needed this amount. But we didn't spend this amount due to the huge donations coming from generous people, and for that we are thankful. Caritas was from day one working on the field. That is why I would like to emphasize on the hard work that Caritas youth showed now. They were the true face of Caritas, starting from the hospitals, to houses, to the fields. They were never tired or reluctant to have been continuously working in all of Lebanon till this moment. What was remarkable was the participation of all of the employees and volunteers in Caritas from all over the areas of Lebanon, who left their villages and homes and their workplaces to come to Beirut and assist in the work. On the other hand, the employees and volunteers living in Beirut and its suburbs were working non-stop despite the devastating impact of the blast on their families and homes. Despite their sacrifice and help on the fields, they kept performing their original duties and work, therefore showing amazing professionalism. Beirut blast revealed the huge separation between the government and its people, between the government and its institutions, between the government and its NGOs, and the separation among the NGOs themselves. In the beginning of the crisis, Caritas started coordinating with other institutions and NGOs and requested a meeting for all the NGOs. We expected to prepare for a meeting for 15 organizations, but we were surprised to have the presence of about 150 organizations. So we discovered that those NGOs are in need for a leader or a coordinator. Therefore, Caritas should play that role. And since then, we selected someone to do this coordination. We would like to thank the Lord on the trust that was given to Caritas from the citizens of this country of Lebanon, and from the donors and from the diaspora. Due to that, we received both big and small donations from all the regions of Lebanon. We received also about 100 containers from the Lebanese diaspora as kind donation. So we distributed them with transparency and enthusiasm from our teams. We received from you, through Caritas Internationalis, and through many friends, the blessed donation, which helped us a lot to do our mission in providing food kits, medicine, renovating neighborhood houses. The question why? How we choose the people who were helped by Caritas? We started by the families which had been helped by Caritas before the explosion. Second, by the list of families given to us by the local diocese. In that time, we organized a meeting for all the bishops of Beirut from several Catholic churches. By example, Maronite, Melkite Catholics, Latin, Chaldean, Armenian, Syriac. And they, the bishop, were supportive and showed good coordination with Caritas. Despite our hectic work in Beirut crisis, the work of Caritas continued in all the sectors: health, education, social, refugees, migrant, livelihood, etc. When we meet the poor and the vulnerable and listen to their agony, we thank God for the blessed opportunity given to us to help them. What can we tell the people who lost everything due to the Beirut blast? They lost their houses, their dear ones, their belongings. What can we tell the parents who blame themselves for killing their own daughter because they didn't allow her to immigrate 2 years ago when she had the chance and was killed this year in the blast? Do we stand silent in front of who lost everything? Their families members, their work, their houses? What do we tell the parents how their children are not sleeping because of the psychological shock of the explosion? What do we tell the children who refuse their parents to leave the house because they are afraid to lose them? What do we tell the people who refuse to renovate their houses because they don't have confidence anymore in this country and are seeking to leave Lebanon and never come back? And many people now left Lebanon. Caritas remains the support, remains the light in the end of the tunnel. This is our mission, and we would never be able to do that if it wasn't for your generosity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Father Abud. And now I would ask Dr. Rita Rayam to speak. Rita led the humanitarian response. It was on the field, on the front line, right in the hours after the blast. So, and she can tell us how was the situation and also what Caritas did and how is now the situation. Rita, please.
Thank you, Marta. Good afternoon, everyone. August 4th at about 6 p.m., history changed its course forever in Lebanon. At that time, an explosion ripped through the capital, sending waves of terror across Lebanon. The explosion was so strong that everyone thought that it happened in their neighborhood. Little we knew back then that this explosion destroyed the heart of Lebanon, and with it, destroying the heart of every Lebanese everywhere. This explosion caused more than 207 deaths, 7,500 injuries, $15 billion property damage, and more than 300,000 people were homeless. The explosion happened in a very critical time of Lebanon, when Lebanon was trying to curb the spread of coronavirus, while dealing with the spillover effect of the Syrian crisis and facing an unprecedented economic crisis impacting the quality of life in a way that never happened before, even during civil war. In this presentation, we will show you the work and present you the work of Caritas 1 year after the blast, this work that was done because of your support. One year after the blast, and immediately once this blast happened, our youth department, especially the emergency response unit, who are trained to deliver and to work during emergencies, rushed immediately to the neighboring hospitals. Unfortunately, with the blast, many hospitals have been destroyed. Many hospitals has been forced to move their patients to other hospitals. So we were there as youth, as emergency response unit, to care for the sick and to help in the triage and the first aid. And immediately afterwards, at night, we assessed the situation and we discovered that our 2 offices located in Beirut are completely destroyed. So at 4 a.m. in the morning, we set up tents, and we decided that those tents will be the hub to distribute and to assist and to provide all the services needed. The next day, we woke up to a nightmare. Our capital, our heritage, our life and savings were destroyed. Yet, we as Caritas Lebanon, team, staff, volunteers, and youth were there to assist the people in need. So our tents were receiving donation from early morning of people who wanted to assist Caritas, and at the same time, it was a meeting point for people who need assistance. Our youth started by cleaning houses. 644 houses were cleaned. All roads were cleaned. And If you went through the roads and the streets at that time, it was a very contrasting images. It was the buildings who are destroyed, who are silent, who are empty, yet the roads who are full of young people coming from across all Lebanon with different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different religions, yet hand in hand are cleaning Beirut and helping to rebuild it again. We started the food distribution. More than 16,000 food kits were distributed and more than 250 hot meals were distributed. People were rushing into our offices wanting to volunteer and wanting at the same time to donate raw materials to cook and to help people. So through our tents, we started to distribute in the neighboring area, but as well distributing food to people who are helping, volunteering with us. We had the food, we had the door-to-door donation. We went to houses and we saw that there are elderlies who've been living 2 to 3 days after the blast, afraid to leave their houses, not eating for the last 3 days. We were there to provide them with hot meals. Our mobile medical units were rushed into the 2 tents and we were able to deliver more than 90,000 health services, from medical consultation to diagnostic exams to nursing care. Most importantly, and during the first weeks, it was the vital signs, the dressings, changing on the wounds, and most importantly, a group of psychologists rushed there in order to provide mental health assistance. Trauma was important and still we're suffering after 1 year. More than 300,000 have lost their homes. So we were there, a team of engineers working to rehabilitate the houses because people had not left their destroyed houses for many reasons. One of them is because they do not have any other places to go to, and the other one because they wanted to remain in their houses, even if they were destroyed. So we assessed 1,725 apartments, and we finished 1,300 apartments, and we're still working into more than 32 apartments. Drawing the attention to the fact that at this time, the prices were skyrocketing. At that time, there have been a scarcity in construction materials, especially when it's come to glass and to wood. Definitely distributing hygiene kits to all the houses affected and all the people affected. And once houses were rehabilitated and renovated, house equipments were as well distributed. So far, and 1 year after the blast, there's still been people who didn't restore or rehabilitate their houses because the destruction is very huge. And lastly, we have worked with small and middle enterprises. Beirut and Lebanon is very centralized. So there are people who have their shops and firms located in Beirut, and they are totally dependent on this shop for income. So we supported more than 2,000 shops, and we helped them to restore, to replenish the stock so they can be independent. And now what? Now we're facing an alarming economic situation. Just imagine that the country that is well known for its food and cuisine, for its hospitality, we're now facing hunger. A report by UNICEF showed that over 30% of families in Lebanon had at least one child who skipped a meal in March 2021, and 77% of the households said they do not have enough food. The fuel crisis has hit factories and business all across Lebanon, threatening production, manufacturing, and transportation in a country where already struggling to secure enough commodities. So the increase of fuel prices will have a spillover effect on all the products, especially that inflation is already skyrocketing. We're saying now that it's more than 40%. However, there are no official figures, and probably it is even more than that. If we're gonna look at the salaries, our currency has lost its values. Before the crisis, $1 equals to 1,500 Lebanese lira. Now it's equal to 22,000 Lebanese lira. So just imagine a minimum wage of 675,000 Lebanese lira, who was equal back then to $450, is now less than $30. How can one survive with a $30 monthly salary? A Lebanese university professor who used to get 3.7 million Lebanese pound as a monthly salary and was equal to around $2,466 is now less than $200, and prices are increasing. The situation is alarming, especially that the health sector has been affected by this blast and by the economic situation. Nowadays, some of the public hospitals are rationing electricity and turning off air conditioning despite rising summer temperatures. The number of COVID-19 cases has increased in June amid an extreme scarcity of medical equipment and medicines. And many health workers have resigned and others have migrated. And on top of this, our education system is falling down, as 80% of Catholic schools, which provide education to approximately 2/3 of students in Lebanon's private institution, may close next year. Unpaid tuitions in Catholic schools amounted to $32 million. 1 year after the blast, this image is what we have in mind. The picture of a lady who has lost her husband, her cousin, and her brother at the same time. Her cry is ours. Her pain is ours. Her strength holding the coffin is ours. We are known by being as a resilient people. Yet today, some of us, we don't want to be resilient anymore. The myth that Beirut has been destroyed for many times and rebuilt for many times, we want it to be a myth, not a reality. We want to live peacefully in our country. Amid this, the solidarity that we have witnessed was so touching and so heartwarming. The Holy See, the Caritas Confederation, your support, the Secretary General, was very impressive and very touching. And we felt that we are not alone. Today, 1 year after the blast, some of us will say that we're there. Whenever we're looking, there's destruction. And on a daily basis, some pieces of us are dying. Some pieces of us are dying every time we're bidding farewell to a friend who's leaving Lebanon, not to come back. Every time we receive a phone call from a friend who has lost his job or her job. Every time we knew about a student who dropped out from schools and universities because they cannot afford to pay tuition fees. Yet, we are the sons of hope. And as His Holiness the Pope said in the General Assembly, December 2016, and I quote, "Hope never disappoints. Optimism disappoints, but hope does not. We have such need in the times which appear dark, in which we sometimes feel disoriented at the evil and violence which surrender us. We must not let hope abandon us, because God, with His love, walks with us. I hope because God is beside me." End of quote. Yes, we still have this hope that is pushing us every day to wake up and to go to work. This hope that gives us strength to fight the fear of the future, to fight uncertainties. This hope's giving us the strength to search for light in the tunnel, even if it is a dim light. Amid this chaos, amid this destruction, Lebanon was and will remain a message of peace. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your solidarity. And thank you for being part of our hope. I will leave you with a testimony of one of the Lebanese. Sorry, I guess there's a technical error to showcase the testimony. So I guess Marta will help us, or later on we will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Rita. If you will be able, maybe we can show that testimony later. We'll be more than happy. I remember talking with Rita the day after the blast, and she told me how the situation was beyond imagination, not just for the blast, but also for the COVID situation and all the needs of the population. But in her speech, Rita talked about hope, and the biggest hope during that day were the hundreds of young people, young volunteers of Caritas Lebanon. Maybe many of them were also affected by the blast. Their family were affected, but they were on the field helping to restoring houses, to distribute food, even having double shift day and night to support people. And we wanted today to have this youth people voice, and we invited Peter Mahfouz, who is Caritas Lebanon youth leader and also a youth representative at the Caritas Internationalis Representative Council. So, Peter, please, if you can join us and tell about your experience.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Caritas Lebanon Youth is around 1,200 youth volunteers divided into 29 youth groups all across Lebanon, implementing more than 1,000 activities per year, reaching more than 50,000 beneficiaries. And we have the emergency response unit that is within Caritas Lebanon Youth that has around 50 volunteers. What happened on the 4th of August 2020 was a disaster. It was nothing that anyone was prepared for. However, it was one of the things that we saw coming eventually in a country where people who are supposed to be responsible aren't. The youth department in Caritas Lebanon truly believes that youth can be actors of change, and once given the chance and the resources, they don't have limits to what can be done. In 2015, Caritas Lebanon Youth established the Emergency Response Unit. The objective and mission of this unit was to be prepared for any type of emergency that might occur. It is part of the preparedness and mitigation measures that Caritas Lebanon Youth thought of in a country where an emergency might occur every single day. And this is what we are doing from yesterday. Our team is in the north of Lebanon, combating a huge fire that is destroying the Akkar region. The unit takes extensive trainings on first aid, fire safety, disaster management, flood control, earthquakes, and other similar topics. The Emergency Response Unit and a large number of Caritas Lebanon youth responded to the Beirut blast. Being part of the response team was not an easy task, a feeling that most of the youth had. Leaving our homes, defying the risks such as COVID-19, it was a decision that had to be done. It was the time to implement all what we were trained for. But were we trained for such a huge disaster? Were the youth trained to leave their homes for weeks and back? Were they trained to be affected by the disaster and respond to it at the same time? I can never forget the first 72 hours where the team stayed awake continuously. No, they are not professional emergency personnel. They were youth. Youth full with enthusiasm and hope. Youth that will do anything to help others who are in need. I can never forget the looks on their faces. I was not able to send any of them home to rest because none of them would. Sleeping in tents and in offices, the youth were trying to do everything that they were able to do in order to support. 1 year has passed, and still today, the youth are still renovating houses affected by the blast. Youth are not the future only, they are also the present. That is what Pope Francis said, and that is what we believe. We as youth are not going to wait for governments, nor others to build our future. We will be doing it ourselves. We have a huge role to be done. That is because we believe we can be change makers. We can build a better tomorrow. We lack a lot of support, but we have a very essential component, which is hope. The economic crisis is increasing. The health situation is deteriorating. The youth are mostly unemployed, no electricity, no water, no fuel, but we still have hope. We still believe that we can rise again. The youth have started working on different projects, from agriculture to several other enterprises, trying to defy all the odds and searching for any resources available to keep them going. Being responsible for such a huge task force of 1,200 Caritas volunteers and more than 500 other volunteers on a daily basis during the recovery of the blast, it was a big challenge. Was I taking the right decisions? Am I good enough to lead? What if things are being done wrong? A lot of questions in a hard and challenging time. However, in front of the enthusiasm and commitment of the team, I knew that we were doing okay. The second day of the blast, I was told by a young volunteer, after he saw me really tired, "Where there is life, there is hope." A sentence that I will never forget, a sentence from a 17-year-old in the middle of a lot of chaos. If that is how he was thinking, that is how we should all think as well. Many of us would ask the question, why? Why did the youth all go down to Beirut? Why did they risk their lives to help and support others after the blast? Why did they leave their homes and comfort zones to be in the middle of destruction and chaos? The answer is simple. It is the normal reaction that the youth have, which is, I will never leave anyone behind. We are all a family. Leaving our differences aside, we are all one body. And if the heart hurts, all the body hurts. And Beirut is our heart. Thank you. I will finish my presentation with a small video prepared by the youth department, summarizing what we did during the blast. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter, and for your speech, but especially for your work and all the youth involved in Caritas Lebanon work. And so now we would like to also to deepen our reflection, given an overview not only on Lebanon but the Middle East region, but okay, sorry, I have information about the video, and for this we invited Caritas Internationalis regional coordinators for the Middle East and North Africa region, Karam Abi Yetzbek. Karam, I hope I pronounced your name properly, who will give us an overview of the situation, not only Lebanon, but the entire region. Karam, please, over to you.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you for preparing all this event. Thank you, Aloysius, for being always supportive and for providing us with your testimony as well in the region. Thank you to my president, Mr. Gabriel Hetti, for as well giving us this introduction, but for always being advocating for this region. And thank you to Father Michel, to Rita, Peter, for your presentation and setting the floor for this. A big thank you to all of you attending here today, and those who are not with us today, but who are supporting, helping, and in solidarity with Lebanon, not only after Beirut blast, which is the biggest, let's say, challenge, but as well since the big crisis that Lebanon is passing through since last October 2019. I would like, of course, to start this presentation by giving you very quickly an overview why I'm talking from a regional perspective. As you know, Father Aboud with Rita and Peter, they gave us a clear overview about Beirut blast, but as well about all the work that Caritas Lebanon is doing. But as the regional secretariat, first, let me tell you that we are based in Lebanon, and it's not by chance that the regional secretariat of Caritas Internationalis for the MENA region, Middle East and North Africa, is based in Lebanon. The founders of the secretariat, they decided to establish this office in Lebanon for two reasons. First of all, there was a request from Caritas Lebanon at that time to have it in Lebanon, knowing the importance of this small country in the region, but also in addition to that, because Lebanon has always been an example country in our region for many things. Mainly, we can talk about education, about liberty, about democracy, many elements. But on top of all this was mainly the experience and the willingness of the Lebanese to work and to always do the best for not only for Lebanon, for the region. And now the testimony of my colleagues in Caritas Lebanon, we're seeing how things are changing dramatically. So allow me to give you a brief about this region, and mainly why I'm talking about that, also to show you a bit how this is impacting Lebanon in a way or another. We all know that the MENA region is affected by wars and conflicts, some of which are recent and others much, much older, you know, and even older than 1948, but the most critical and protracted crisis is since 1948, the Arabo-Israeli conflict. If you look to those two maps, and here, when we're talking about those man-made crises, we have crises and disasters around the world. Some of them are natural crises, maybe indirectly made by man, but here, usually in our region, Middle East, mainly we're talking about man-made crisis, and maybe sometimes made on purpose or on other means, but this is causing a lot of refugees, migrants, IDPs around our region and in the world. And it is still the biggest in the world, from Syria, more than 6 million, Afghanistan, more than 2 million, South Sudan, Myanmar, and Somalia. Out of all those countries, I am enumerating top 5, 4 of them are in our region, and Afghanistan is very close. As we know, especially now, with what's going on in Afghanistan lately, we are having a big influx of refugees coming to Iran, and our vulnerable, very small Caritas in Iran are not able to compete, to answer the needs, the big needs. So it is still ongoing. And if you look to this map, you will see by word mapper, a bit kind of a comparison. If you look, you will see the reference map, this reference map here, how the word is normally distributed and the way how we used to see the map. And here, if you look to this map, we see the refugees' origin in 2020, and you will see like mainly it's from Africa, Middle East, and part of Asia. And even if we compare Africa to Middle East, which is here relatively smaller Middle East, we can see here it is as big as Africa with the number of refugees. So this is just one factor to say that in our region, we all know, it hasn't been mentioned by our colleagues from Caritas Lebanon, but we all know also that one of the biggest challenges today we're facing in Lebanon, not today, it's since 2011, is the number of refugees, big influx that arrived from Syria, without forgetting that we used to have also a number from Palestinian refugees or Iraqis, etc. This is not to say that this is our problem, but to say that this is also one of the elements where it's linked to the regional conflicts. Without forgetting that this region, the Middle East, is very influenced by international and regional powers, as it has been said by my president. We all know the security challenges, especially after the Abraham Accords. We all know that this Arabo-Israeli conflict and tension is ongoing since 1948 with different elements, players, episodes, and lately we've seen also what happened this year. But here also I would like to mention those accords between Israel and many Arab countries, namely United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and others. And all this, it has its own influence. Just because also we were talking about the Beirut blast last August 4, and this blast happened in Beirut port. And we all know that Lebanon is not strong in agriculture, not in industry, not even tourism has been affected heavily. So the last 3 remaining sectors for Lebanon were banking system, education, and health system. And in our region, those 3 sectors were example, and they were still able to maintain the economy of Lebanon in a way or another. And the port of Beirut was one of those, was hub also for the region. So now we don't know yet why and how it happened, this explosion. We don't know yet. We don't have information. But also we can ask many questions. And one of those questions, what will be the future of Beirut port, especially that we know now that on the 1st of September, in less than 2 months, they will inaugurate the newest port in the world, which is Haifa port, the new Haifa port, which is one of the biggest also in the Mediterranean Sea. And with their Abraham Accords and relation with the United Arab Emirates and other countries, we all know that this will also bring the attention outside Beirut port. And if we were talking about schools, education sector, and health sectors, my colleague Rita was also talking about the collapse of those 2 systems in Lebanon after the collapse of the banking system. So nowadays, one of the major factors is that in Lebanon, unfortunately, we don't have any sector that is still holding up. Second element is the Iran-US negotiations around the nuclear deal, etc. And we hope this will lead to something positive, but so far we know the situation. In our region, there is the Saudi Arabia and Iran proxy wars. We all know that Iran, more or less, or mainly, it represents the Muslim Shia in the region, and Saudi Arabia is the lead country for the Sunni Muslim community. And between those 2, there is tension. Never a war happened, but there is always a proxy war that I will come back to this a bit later. We have as well the relation with Russia and China in our region, especially that we know that the war in Syria was one of the biggest, and many players were involved there. One of them is Russia, who is still there, but also US, China, Turkey, etc., etc. Then we have also the role of Turkey, which is a powerful regional actor who is involved in many countries of our region, especially with the situation of the Kurds, especially in Syria and Iraq, and their influence, without forgetting that Turkey is the main support for the Muslim Brotherhood. And this is as well an additional factor which we can see the influence in Yemen and Libya and other places. Without forgetting the post-COVID economic challenges, where all the countries, wherever you are now, you know that you are suffering from this pandemic, but as well in this region, in addition to all those crises, as well as in Lebanon, where we have many big major crises, this is something to take into consideration. I just mentioned those 2 elements. They are not everything, of course, but I see that we have 3 main challenges, very big challenges that are hindering the improvement of our region and causing those biggest problems. First one is the corruption. And we all know that corruption is the main problem for Lebanon, but as well for other countries in our region. Then second element is the lack of accountability. I'm not generalizing, but the majority of our population don't work for the common good, but it's mainly, they don't hold the leaders or politicians accountable, and this is what is leading to maintain the same leadership, more or less, as well as with a third element, which is very important, is the foreign influence. And we cannot neglect the interrelation between the 3 elements. because foreign influence, they know about corruption, and sometimes they were they were like, even if they are not intervening, but at least they know what's going on. Accountability is lacking in the country, and foreign influence and those international powers, they have their own interest. So those three elements, they are and still influencing all the political and socio-economic situation in the region. Without forgetting the sanctions, and here I'm talking not about UN sanctions that they are legal, here I'm talking about unilateral coercive measures. And those unilateral sanctions imposed by some countries or group of countries, at the end, they are not, and from our experience as a humanitarian actors, I'm not talking politics here, but as humanitarian actors, we cannot give proof of how those sanctions had impact on regimes or political leaders in our region. But of course, we can give proof, and we have impact on how those sanctions had impact on poor and refugees and other vulnerable groups in our region. These sanctions contribute to amplify migration, and the most vulnerable people pay by the highest price. Children, sick or elderly people, migrants, refugees are the ones who are paying the highest bill due to those sanctions. I mentioned this proxy war, and here I'm coming back to this map again. And especially if you look to Lebanon, you will see that in this small country, in this region, you have all the colors. And the colors, you can see what it represents. Green, mainly those who are pro-Iran front. In red or orange, the pro-Saudi Arabia front. And you have other countries who are, it's very complex. I don't have now the time to explain how, for example, Turkey is in the same time in good relation with Iran, as well as in good relation with Israel, while Iran and Israel, they are in total confrontation, as well as Turkey, who is as well with good relation with Saudi Arabia, and as well as United States, but also they have a lot of relation and communication with Russia, etc. and etc. So here I'm not going into all the relations that are very complex, but at least I'm just highlighting the main tension in our region, which is between Iran and those who are pro-Iran and this group, as well as Saudi Arabia and those who are pro-Saudi Arabia and the other groups, which is usually presented as it is a tension or conflict between Shiite and Sunnite, but it's not totally the reality. And here I'm mentioning this because, as you see in Lebanon, you have all the colors, because unfortunately, since long time in Lebanon, this feeling of citizenship is low, while we witness more different affiliation related to small or like different appartenance, belongings, like to the confession or groups or whatever. And all this is affecting the country situation, in addition to the biggest problem, which is economic problem. As you know, in South Lebanon, there is a frontier, the borders with Israel, which is no-go. And then all the other parties were surrounded by Syria. And all the economy and business between Lebanon and the Gulf countries that used to be the main hub for all the business in Lebanon went through Syria. And since the war in Syria, everything has been blocked. And later on, Syria was depending a lot on the banking system in Lebanon, as well as other sectors due to sanctions, Caesar Act and other issues. And now, because of all this complexity, many factors are becoming more and more pressuring the economy in Lebanon, as well as the banking system, even our humanitarian work. I do not to go too much into analysis, just to conclude, let me conclude with those two slides. One, on economic impact. On a regional level, there is a prolonged economic recession. The sanctions, we've mentioned this, but it has a big impact on all sectors. less tourism for granted. Not only was COVID, but it started even from before because of all the conflicts. Estimation talk about 45 million in the MENA region expected to be pushed into poverty. In Lebanon, you've heard the numbers, but in the region as well, it's gonna be problematic, and it will affect again Lebanon as well. Lower oil prices, and we all know that many Lebanese working abroad, the diaspora, many of them are working in Arab countries, and if this will be affecting the Arab countries, this will affect indirectly also Lebanese society. As well as foreign direct investment, it's expected to drop by 45%. The implication, of course, less access to resources. And here I mentioned just the water. There is many natural resources, but considering water, it has been a source of tension in our region, but of course it will continue to be. Now, lately, we have seen a lot of demonstration in Iran, in Iraq, in many places, because of the lack of water resources. And it is already a tension between countries related to water resources. Rise in unemployment rate as well as informal trade. Increase in food prices. You've heard some example. Nutritional implications. Risk of social unrest. And this is very, very possible when people reach this level of collapse at the economy level and all sectors. Slower or lack of economic reforms. Affected groups, I mean, I don't know if I have to tell, but I'm sure it affects everyone, but mainly informal labor, refugees, women, youth, people with disabilities, but I'm sure it's affecting everyone. Future perspective, just trying to be positive. It's good always to see some in Lebanon now, unfortunately, we're always saying that we're not seeing yet the end of the tunnel. Now, we hope we can see some light, but we need to look for and trying to find this light. So some perspective for the future. One is that the Middle East will gain rather than lose in strategic importance. And we know that this is for many reasons. Youth as a powerful catalyst for change. The youth can be a very important catalyst for positive change if we invest in awareness and capacity strengthening and building their capacity to take the lead. But in the same time, it's very dangerous because those youth themselves can be catalysts for negative change. And we all know that radical groups and some extremists, they are also investing in youth. So this is an element to take into consideration and to work for the positive change. The Middle East is a growing marketplace, and it will stay, but this is again a factor that is very linked to the security situation. Nuclear talks between Iran and US that we hope they will bring some solutions or at least some windows. The diplomatic relation between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and we've been witnessing lately in the last 2 months some openings that hopefully will bring to more positive relationship. And my last point in this is the role of civil society as well as the support of the international community, which is very important. And so far nowadays in Lebanon, we all know Father Aboud, he was mentioning the big role of the civil society, who is unfortunately replacing the government at a certain level, which is not healthy, but that it's good that we have a civil society to fill the gap. And all this with the support of the international community. Without that, it wasn't possible to continue. And here again, I will thank you all for all your support, your contribution, all your solidarity with Lebanon and especially with Caritas Lebanon. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Karam, for your clear analysis that helped us to better understand the situation in the Middle East. Now, while I remember you all is that if you have any question, you can write it in the chat box. I will try to share the testimony that Rita wanted to share before. I don't know what happened. Okay.
يعني أنا ما كنت هون لبين ما وصلت لهون للساعة 12:30 بالليل قدرت أوصل على البيت. لقيت ما في بيت، كله بالهواء، راح كل البيت. لو ما كاريتاس ما حدا اجى لعندي، لك ما سألوا نحن وين، لك بيت مدمر، ميدينه مدمر، ما اجوا سألوا على هيدا المدمر بيته وين نايم، بالحقلة على التريتوار بالحرش، وين نايمين العالم؟ شو فكرك لهم؟ كل العالم حكيت، بس مين جاب نتيجة؟ منيح اللي فيه كاريتاس اجوا يعمروا لنا. منيح في كاريتاس، لو ما في كاريتاس كان كله الدمار بعده هون مثل ما هو.
Thank you very much, Rita, for sharing this with this video. You really get what is Caritas, even where cameras are not there, when nobody else is there. Caritas is there with the local communities, always ready to help, as it was in Lebanon right after the blast, and as it is still today. It seems that there are no questions for the moment, so I will, and we are a little bit late, so I will now give the floor to Monsieur Atti and then to our Secretary General for the conclusion of this really interesting and meaningful webinar. Monsieur Atti, vous m'écoutez?
Oui, oui, je vous entends. Oui, merci.
Okay.
Merci Martha, merci pour tout. Donc, voilà, s'il n'y a pas de questions, c'est que tout le monde est satisfait. J'espère qu'on a été assez clair dans tout ce qu'on a dit jusqu'à maintenant. En tous les cas, je remercie beaucoup le secrétaire général pour son intervention, ces gentils mots qu'il a dit à notre endroit. D'autre part, je remercie aussi le Père Michel qui a été très clair dans son propos, qui a tout dit, ainsi que Rita, donc avec son PowerPoint. Je crois que toutes les pétards aussi, avec toutes leurs émotions, avec toute leur expérience, avec tout leur professionnalisme, comme je l'ai dit tout à l'heure. Et voilà, je crois que ça a été très utile, cette réunion pour moi, très important, parce que souvent, notre cause au Moyen-Orient n'est pas bien comprise. Voilà, donc il faut l'expliquer, la réexpliquer. Et puis aussi, je pense que Karam a bien fait de resituer le phénomène libanais à travers toute la configuration sous-régionale et internationale. C'est très important, ça aussi. Le Liban n'est pas isolé et il dépend de tout le monde, et lui aussi, et les autres dépendent de lui aussi en quelque sorte. Vous voyez, c'est dommage parce que les Libanais descendent des Phéniciens, ils sont de grands explorateurs, de grands navigateurs, des grands migrants. Plutôt, ils étaient plutôt des émigrés et aujourd'hui, ils sont devenus des migrants. Voilà, donc je ne sais pas si vous avez pris note pour me traduire. Voilà ce que je voulais dire et merci beaucoup à tout le monde. Je pense que Aloysius parlera après moi.
Thank you, Mr. Gabriel Hatti. So thanks to all the Lebanese and Mona colleagues for your rich presentation, explaining the complexity of the region with a mosaic of problems and how vulnerable the socio-economic and political situation is today. At this moment, when we are concluding this celebration of solidarity and sharing, I would like to once again thank all the donators for your gesture of solidarity. The presentation of the work done witnessed the power of healing through sharing and giving. And they also showed how important is each gesture of solidarity to enable the life-saving mission of Caritas to give hope at such a difficult moment. Solidarity challenged fatalism and made everybody realize that together we can change sorrow and tears into joy and hope in the future. Thank you very much for your collaboration with Caritas Internationalis. And once again, thanks to the region and bon courage à Caritas Liban. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you.
Au revoir, Père Michel, et bon courage. Bon courage.
Thank you. Bon.
Gracias.
Rita.
Thank you very much to all of you for being with us
Martha.
today.
Merci Martha, merci beaucoup.
Merci,
Merci.
Gabriel. On reste en contact. Merci beaucoup, Gabriel.
Congratulations and support to Caritas Lebanon.
And thanks
Thank
to
you,
all
Father
the
Michel.
and thanks to all the translators also.